Hi guys, it's Sandy for Crafty Stamp Co. And today I have an adorable sewing themed card made with the stamp set Stitched Whiskers. This set is available only in the 2026 Crafty Crew Kit. The window for pre-ordering that kit is December 1st through the 15th. It is scheduled to start shipping on January 5th. If you see anything from this card that you really like, I would suggest getting in on that pre-order because they will not be available again until maybe 6 months to a year. So let's get started on this card. The stamp set that comes in the January 2026 Crafty Crew Kit is called Stitched Whiskers, and it has 3 cute little kittens in it, and they're all doing something that has to do with sewing. So my first kitten has a couple bolts of fabric. The second kitten has a patchwork quilt that she made, and my third little kitten is being naughty because she's playing with a pair of scissors. Now the pattern paper that I'm using in this card comes from the Lovely as a Rose pattern paper collection, and that is also in the kit. I didn't have a greenish or bluish green marker that matched the blue-green in the paper very well. So what I'm doing to compensate for that or create my own color is I'm using a BG70 and a BG72 Copic marker. And I'm just taking my lighter marker, the 70, and just touching the 72 to get a little bit darker tone from that Copic marker BG70. Once I get the shading done with that color, then I will go back in with the BG72 and do a little bit of shading with that. I do need to be very careful with that color because it is very intense. I'm going to use that same technique on the little patchwork quilt, just in 2 of those corners. For the pink on my little patchwork quilt and the bolt of fabric on the first kitty, I am using RV11, RV81, and RV83. I matched those colors again to the pattern paper pack, which is called Lovely as a Rose. There are so many really pretty pinks in that set, along with that seafoam green. They're just wonderful. To color in my little kittens, I went with a more neutral gray. I tend to be drawn to the cool grays and the warm grays, and I don't know if that's just where they're located in my marker holder, but I decided I'd go with more of a neutral color. They just seem to be pretty, they're not warm, but they're not cool either, if that makes any sense. I just really like this color combination. So I am going to start with the base color on my kittens. I'm using an N1. Then my next shade will be N3, and then I'll follow up with an N5. And when I do coloring, I find it easier to get a nice blend if I do my entire area that I'm coloring with a kind of like a base of my lightest color. I just find that that helps wet that paper, and it helps me with my blending. I always marvel at people that can do the 3 colors next to each other and just blend them perfectly. That just is not the way I've been able to do it. Maybe someday. So again, I'm going to use those colors. I'll start with my lightest color. I'll move into my medium color, and then I'll do just a small amount of shading with that darkest color. For my little kitty that has the patchwork quilt, I wanted to add a pattern to the fabric that she's holding up. So I took the darkest of my colors, and the pink I just drew in some diagonal lines. And then with the bluish green color, I just went in and added some little polka dots. I had considered trying to do that on the bolts of fabric for the other kitten, and I was fairly confident I could do the polka dots on that blue-green color, but I was afraid I wasn't going to get a very nice diagonal on that pinkish color, so I just left those fabric bolts alone. For the background on this card, I am using 2 pieces from the pattern paper pack. I have cut the solid pink 5.5 by 4.25, and then my pattern piece of paper is cut to 5.25 by 4 inches. I'll go ahead and adhere those together. Keeping with my patchwork theme, I cut out 3 little squares of the pattern paper that's kind of got a polka dot. I actually used a die from my stash to cut those out, and I adhered my 3 little kittens in the center of each one of those squares. And then I got brave, because once I started looking at the little cat with the patchwork quilt, it just didn't look right not having the stripes and the dots on the fabric bolts. So I got brave and I went ahead and, crossed my fingers and held my tongue just right and added in those little diagonal stripes and those polka dots. It looked much better once everything was done. It kind of tied it all together. Once I got my kitties placed and glued onto the card where I wanted them, I decided that I would add a few of the little buttons in that top right-hand corner. Now, those little buttons come with the kit if you're a monthly subscriber. They're kind of the bonus for being a subscriber. And they matched absolutely perfectly with the paper and the whole theme. It just kind of tied together the whole card. So I'm going to take 3 of those. I have a pink colored pearl cotton thread. It's actually probably a rayon because it's so shiny and slippery. And I'm just going to go ahead and sew 3 of those little buttons on in that top hand corner. And then I will knot the thread on the back of the card, as opposed to tying each one on individually, which I did on another card. I stamped the sentiment on a piece of white cardstock and used one of my dies to cut it out. I am going to go ahead and pop that up with some foam dots, just so that I have a little bit of continuity between the dimension of the buttons and something else on the card that's kind of popped up. So I'll go ahead and pop that up and place it in that lower right-hand corner. And that pretty much does it for this card. I absolutely love the way it turned out. I love the whole sewing theme. There's a Stitched with Love Meadow that's included in the kit, which is just adorable too. She's got a little sewing machine, and she's holding a little patchwork teddy bear that she created. Just adorable. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you have been inspired by this card. And again, if you want to order the kit, the pre-order window is December 1st through the 15th. Thanks again, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.